Okay, Prince Charming Part 2, here we go. It was the afternoon after Rarity's shopping trip when Twilight, Applejack, Pinkie Pie, Fluttershy, and Rainbow Dash burst into her boutique. "Rarity!" Twilight yelled. "Have you seen the morning paper?" "Why?" Rarity said, trying to act surprised. "What happened?" "Some pony broke into the bone house," Applejack started, "and chopped the whole place up." "Oh my!" Rarity gasped. Well, that must be like something that's unheard of in Ponyville, like, because everybody in Ponyville is always so friendly and nice. Like, somebody going into the mortuary and chopping everything up would be pretty out of this world. "The corpses in the mortuary," Rainbow Dash started to read over Twilight's shoulder, "were found this morning, mutilated and disturbed. A few were missing heads, one was missing arms, and another missing its legs. The intruder had also murdered and beheaded the night guard of the mortuary." Fluttershy hid in the corner, sobbing. "You don't think there's a murderer loose in Ponyville, do you, Twi?" asked Rainbow Dash, eyes wide with concern. "Because nothing like this has ever happened before." "There seems to be a mad pony in town," Twilight said, hoof raised in thought. "But what's strange is that whoever did this was going some kind of harvest." "What do you think, Pinkie Pie?" "Pinkie Pie?" Every pony turned to look at Pinkie. She was standing behind all of them, uncharacteristically quiet. She was staring straight ahead with a disbelieving look. "I think whoever did this," she started to say slowly, "was, and still is, very upset." She kept staring at Rarity. Rarity's heart almost skipped a beat. Did Pinkie Pie know? But how could she? Was it her Pinkie sense? No, it couldn't be. She was just using logic. Of course, a murderer would have to be upset. That didn't point to anything on Rarity. "Well," Twilight started to say, "I should report this to the princess. I suggest that we keep an eye out and protect ourselves and our friends the best we can. But in the meanwhile, we should return to our normal routines." "I'll discuss things with Big Macintosh, too," Applejack said. "I'll try and keep a lookout for anything strange," Rainbow Dash said with a salute. "Me too," Pinkie Pie said quietly. They all waved and said goodbye as they left Rarity by herself. Perhaps she should be a bit more subtle next time, but now wasn't the time to worry about that. Rarity made her way upstairs. Sweetie Belle, again not with her friends, was absent and left the boutique empty for Rarity. She reached the landing and called down the hidden steps to the attic. As she entered it, a strong, sharp scent greeted her. Well, obviously she needed to continue to preserve body parts, and her magic and some extra chemicals did just that. Rarity put on a clear raincoat. The makeshift operation room was now fully set. A total of 6 severed heads, eyes closed and mouths slightly agape, were propped up on a shelf on one wall. The limbs were laid out on a separate, smaller table under them. But on the main center table was the base, the canvas where Rarity could create her best work of art. Her soon-to-be Prince Charming was in the room. She just had to put him together. As eager as Rarity was, she had already begun her work. The full body of the stallion she had taken for the torso was already prepared. Its limbs and head were cut off. The important nerves and blood vessels were delicately left intact, branching out of the main body of the torso like small roots from a tree. The discarded parts were left in a large bin in the corner of the attic. On another wall of the attic, Rarity's designs were posted. Her self-made instructions and diagrams were there, showing her final product. She had designs for the perfect face, mane, and body frame. She knew exactly where each important nerve ending, vein, and artery had to go. "At this rate," Rarity said to herself, "and without any interruptions, I should be done in just a few days." She strolled over to the table with limbs and carried the legs and arms to the center of the room. She lifted one forearm to the torso. Rarity then picked up a needle and thread and started her long and tedious work. Stitch by stitch, she sewed the arm on as she would a sleeve to a dress, carefully attaching the right nerves and vessels. After about 3 hours of bloody sewing, she stepped back to admire her work. 1 limb, 3 more to go. Rarity gave the one arm a firm tug. Yes, it was attached perfectly. She laid her head down onto the torso. "Soon, my prince. Soon." "Hey, sis?" "Yes, Sweetie Belle?" It had been a few days since a newspaper article about Rarity's little adventure had been published. Every pony was still talking in hushed whispers and looking out for the still loose criminal. "You've been cooped up upstairs a lot these past few days," Sweetie Belle said. The two sisters were in Sweetie Belle's room, both cleaning up. "What the hell are you doing up there? I hardly get to talk to you anymore." "Oh, don't trouble your little head about it," Rarity replied. "I'm just working on a huge project, that's all." "Oh, like a dress?" Sweetie asked. Yes, something like that," Rarity said. "Ooh, what kind?" Sweetie Belle continued. "What color is it? Is it for another party? Can I go too? Is it pretty? I bet it's beautiful. When will it be done?" Rarity gave a small sigh and pursed her lips. Were all little sisters this annoying and nosy, or was it just hers? Ooh, can I see it?" "Absolutely not!" Rarity shouted. Sweetie Belle shut her mouth at once, and her eyes widened a bit. Rarity had never raised her voice at Sweetie before. Even when she had cut up Rarity's gold silk, she never yelled at her. "Oh, okay, sis," Sweetie Belle said, shrinking quietly. "I won't go near it. I promise." Rarity turned away from her. She shouldn't have yelled like that. "This is going to be a surprise," she said in a false happy voice. "And if anything, I don't want to spoil it." "If you say so." Sweetie started to back out of the room. Also, Pinkie Pie's been looking for you, but I told her that you were busy." She left the room, presumably to find her own friends. All of these interruptions! At this rate, her lover would never be finished. And Pinkie Pie? She definitely knew something. Rarity had to keep a closer eye on her. Again, Rarity found herself in her attic along with a half-finished stallion. The legs and arms were attached and the organs were still in prime condition. On a separate table, the 6 heads were stationed there, taking part in Rarity's next step. The heads were propped up side by side. 5 seemed to be missing parts, and one other was being tended to by Rarity and her scalpel. She slid the blade into the base of the head, where the neck met the back of the head. She made the horizontal cut from ear to ear. I accidentally said a profane word. My goodness. I've been reading too many Klopfics. Rarity then made an incision from the top of the head, down to the base. She held on to 2 flaps of flesh at the back of the head and pulled. With a sound like separating Velcro, the skin and meat slowly tore off of the skull. A few minutes passed until all that was left was a bare and bloody skull. Rarity laid the face she had torn off flat on the table. Now all she had to do was piece together the perfect face the way she saw fit. She took many different pieces, parts of the muzzle, the cheek, the chin, the jaw, the forehead, the temple, and the eyelids. Using her skills and eyes of a sick and twisted fashionista, she arranged and rearranged the pieces, like the pieces to a bloody and fleshy puzzle. The face slowly came together, sewn in a white thread. Rarity picked up the quilt of the pony flesh and stretched it over a bare skull she had made earlier and sewed it in place, occasionally using the stapler. Standing back to see her newest work of art, Rarity gave a small chuckle. What she saw would cause any normal pony to vomit. In front of her sat a stallion's head. Its face was scattered with mismatched colors and different coats. Stitches and scars were left streaking across its surface. The skin and flesh of 6 different individuals were now attached to one head, creating the perfect face. Song interlude. Prince Charming, my perfect Prince Charming. I will make you from scratch. I will stitch you together. She carried the dripping head off of the table and onto the center table that had the main body. We will be a perfect match, together forever, so perfect and loving. I'm not singing that. I'm not singing it. Again. Rarity positioned it on top of the torso and the neck. She pulled out her needle and twine. I'll make you divine and be ever so happy to call you mine. Rarity gazed down at the face of her perfect lover. Soon he'd be walking with her and caring for her. She leaned in and kissed the head on its cold, bloody lips. Yeah, she's insane. And well into the night, and until morning, the crazed and lonely seamstress sewed her way through the flesh that was to be her perfect husband. And as she did it, all she did was smile and sing. Prince Charming, my better-than-average Prince Charming. I will craft you from the basis of materials. I will intertwine your bodily parts into one sentient mass. We will be completely compatible for each other. We will last until the bonds of time shatter. So... I already used better than average. So without flaw and romantic. I shall make you divine. I don't really think. I shall engineer you so that you are a divine being. And be beyond the point of common joy to address you as my own. There we go. A few more days passed when the 6 friends were gathered around a cafe table. They hadn't had any adventures after their best night ever, and were eager to get together again, especially Rarity. No pony ever saw her these days. Only her sister, Sweetie Belle, would be able to talk to her before she shoot with... brain fart. No pony ever saw her these days. Only her sister, Sweetie Belle, would be able to talk to her before she was shooed out of Rarity's house to play. They had met for lunch and were idly talking, occasionally passing gossip. "So, Dash," piped up Applejack, "how are you and Song getting along?" "He's kind of a klutz," she said with a giggle. "But what the hey, I love him." The 6 mares all giggled at their girl talk. "Hey, Rarity," Twilight said, "when you're going to introduce us to this Prince Charming of yours? After what you've told us, you two seem to be seeing each other a lot." "Oh, yes, he's quite the charmer," Rarity said proudly. "He's everything I've ever dreamt of." "So, when will we be able to meet him?" asked Fluttershy. "Oh, soon enough," Rarity replied. "Yes, just a bit more time and he'd be finished." "So, where did you say he was from?" Pinkie Pie asked with a slight grin. "Ah," Rarity paused. "From Canterlot. He's very refined." "Right," Pinkie said, still smiling. "Maybe Twilight has heard of him." "Oh, would you look at the time?" Rarity stammered, looking at her bare wrist. "I should really get back home and finish those things for hoity-toity. I'll see you around, girls." And with that, she sped off to her boutique. "Do you think Rarity's been a bit off lately? You know, distant?" Pinkie Pie said, watching Rarity's trail of dust. "Nah," Applejack said, shaking her head. "I bet she's just flustered about her new boyfriend is all." She looked at Pinkie with a slight smile. "And shame on you for egging on her like that." "Yep," Pinkie Pie replied, still watching Rarity's trail. "Silly old, crazy, random me." As Rarity entered her boutique, there were only 3 things on her mind: Pinkie Pie, Sweetie Belle, and her attic. Was Pinkie Pie interrogating her? Not likely. She didn't seem to be the type to do so. All Rarity had wanted to do was finish her project, but her somewhat pesky friends had called her up, and Sweetie Belle was alone at home. Rarity hoped to heaven that she wasn't tempted to poke around Rarity's attic, but then she remembered. Sweetie Belle was at school at this hour. Rarity sighed in relief and giggled nervously. Silly me, she thought to herself. Now she had the whole afternoon to knock, knock, knock. Rarity stamped her hoof in frustration. Who could that be now? She opened the door and saw Pinkie Pie. "Oh, hello, Pinkie Pie," she said through the door. "Rarity," she said without even a hello. "I can tell when something's wrong, and before you do anything drastic, please, I'm here for you if you need a friend." She gave Rarity a warm smile. Rarity frowned. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said haughtily, "and frankly, I don't think what I do is any of your business. Now please, Pinkie, I'm very busy." And Rarity closed the door. She just had to put some finishing touches on her prince. Pinkie stood outside the boutique, still in front of the closed door. Something was wrong with Rarity, and she knew it. Pinkie Pie didn't know how, but she could feel it in her gut. She knew that somehow Rarity was connected to the murder on the newspaper article days ago. She had to tell someone. Pinkie Pie ran back to the cafe she and the others had met at. Luckily, they were all still there. "Guys!" Pinkie Pie shouted as she skidded to a stop at the table.
I can't hold this in any longer. I think Rarity was behind the murder.
What? The other four replied at once.
Yeah, and I think she's going to do something terrible, Pinkie Pie continued. Pinkie Pie, Twilight said, think about who you're talking about. This is Rarity, the most refined pony in all of Ponyville. And why would she want to murder... Oh, that was a poorly constructed sentence. And why would she want to murder in the first place? I don't know, Pinkie said through gritted teeth. But I just know she's doing something. Sugar Cube, Applejack interjected. If this is some kind of prank or joke, it's not very funny. What? Pinkie Pie exclaimed. I don't think Rarity would ever do such a thing like that, Rarity said quietly. But, Pinkie stammered. She just knew it, but she could not for the life of her explain it. She was getting very frustrated. Even her hair flopped down, straight and hanging down limply. Yeah, Rainbow Dash said finally. I think we're gonna need a bit more proof than your pinky sense on this one, Pinkie Pie. Proof? She said seriously. You want proof? I'll get you proof! Why are you so determined to pin on this on Rarity? Twilight said, pointing a hoof threateningly at Pinkie. Because it's for her own good! She yelled and stormed off. She was trying to keep Rarity from doing something she would regret. She knew how it felt to have lost everything and desperately tried to fill the void. The bucket of turnips and pile of rocks were perfect examples, but why had none of her friends believed her? It was a dark and stormy night. No, wait, it wasn't. It was a warm summer evening, and every pony in Ponyville was headed to bed without a worry in the world. Except for two individuals. Pinkie Pie was still up, thinking about ways to get proof that she would ultimately save one of her best friends, Rarity. The other individual was Rarity. She was finally finished. She had convinced Sweetie Belle to have a sleepover at Sweet Apple Acres with her friends. Luckily for Rarity, she did not object. Upstairs in Rarity's lair, she was as proud as the day she had gotten her cutie mark. She stood at the center of the room, covered in dried blood beside the center table. The stallion was finished. The perfect prince for Rarity was lying on the table, waiting to be held in Rarity's arms. There were a number of small machines scattered throughout the room. A device to circulate blood was attached to the body. Another was keeping the blood at normal body temperature. A machine, an electrocardiogram, monitored the heart rate of the body, which now was flatlined. This was it. Tonight was a night where Rarity's dreams would come true, where she would finally be happy, where she would finally have a happily ever after. She stood back and firmly placed hooves on the floor. Eyes closed in concentration, her horn started to glow. She felt around with her magic in the corpse's body for its heart. She found it and wrapped it in the magic. Rarity then strained as she charged up an electricity-like spell. As it built up, she struggled to control it. Almost at her limit, sweat dripping off of her face and mane in a mess, she released it. The enormous electric shock shot through the dead heart and throughout the rest of the body. The quilted corpse jerked once as the shock passed through. Rarity, panting from the spell, looked up. The electrocardiogram was still flatlined. No pulse was present. No, this isn't right. You should be alive now. Why wasn't this working? She stood beside the still body of her prince-to-be. Wake up, she whimpered. You're supposed to be awake. You're supposed to be perfect. Rarity just stood there. Her eyes were dripping with tears. Again, she had failed to obtain her true love. Again, she had her hopes and dreams shot down and crushed. Rarity started to mourn for the lover she could never have. Blip! Rarity's eyes opened. Blip! That was the electrocardiogram. Blip! Eyes still bleary with tears, Rarity looked up to the machine. Blip! A pulse! There was a pulse! As the minutes slowly crawled by, the cardiogram's pulse started to speed up. Rarity walked over to the cardiogram and read the numbers. 3 beats per minute, 7 beats per minute, 13 beats per minute, 19, 22, 28, 35, then finally, a constant 41. That's it, Rarity said silently. That's the prime number! She looked at the now living body on the center table. He was definitely alive, but why was he still just laying there, not breathing? As As the cardiogram continued to make its rhythmic noise and blood was continuing to pump through the body, Rarity looked at her creation in disappointment. She leaned in and kissed the body on its lips. As her lips touched the lips of the now living pony, the once dead quilted stallion's eyes snapped open. Rarity, startled by the sudden movement, jumped back. The now thriving stallion opened its mouth and forcefully sucked in a chestful of air. It then turned to the side of the table and hacked up a pint of blood. Rarity gave a loud squeal of happiness. It was just like the fairy tales. It was alive. It's alive! Rarity approached her creation, her new baby. Tears of joy were streaming down her face at the sight of him. Finally, her perfect Prince Charming was right in front of her. My love, she said quietly. My prince! My lover! The monster, still taking great lungfuls of air, looked up at Rarity. His eyes were mad and staring, no color in its irises. The flesh on his face was stretched in places and quilted. Finally, he opened his mouth again. I shouldn't be alive, he said in a raspy, gurgling voice. What? Rarity said, still smiling and emotional from her success. Why did you make me alive? The stallion said, still breathing heavily and staring. But you're my lover, Rarity said shakily. I made you perfect. We're meant to be together forever. I should not be alive. What? Rarity started. I should be dead, the monster bellowed. It's not a pony's will to create life. That judgment does not belong to you. Oh my god, this is awesome. But what? Rarity said, shocked at what she was hearing. What do I call you? Mother? Creator? Master? God? The stallion slid off the table and advanced towards Rarity. Look at me. Look at me! Is this normal? Does this seem like something that should be done? I have no soul. I was manufactured through the bodies of others. Life was never created unwillingly. I made you, Rarity started, so that we could be together forever. You're my perfect mate, my Prince Charming, my husband. It burns whenever I breathe, he continued. Every step I take sends pain through my dead body. The blood pumping through these ponies' veins feel like ice. Why? Why did you have to make me exist? Rarity was stunned in horror. This wasn't what she had expected. She had hopes for a loving and willing individual under her creation. I shouldn't be alive. The stallion turned towards the shelf covered in sharp tools. Wait! What are you? Rarity said, watching him. I shouldn't be alive. The beast tore off the tubes, connecting the blood to his body. No! Stop! You need that! I shouldn't be alive. He slowly stepped towards the shelf. Stop! No! I shouldn't be alive. He picked up a large knife. No! What are you? Rarity shouted, running towards her prince. Don't! Please! I created you! The stallion plunged the knife into his own chest. A smile crept across his stretched face as the knife punctured his heart. Rarity stopped in place, eyes bulging in horror as she watched. I should be dead, he said, stabbing the knife into himself with each word. The monster tumbled to the floor, knife still jutting out of his chest. Blood was pooling under him, the puddle growing wider and wider. Rarity screamed in absolute terror. Her creation, her most precious prince, lay on the floor, unmoving. She ran up to him and sat down next to him. My prince? She stuttered quietly. Please wake up. You're supposed to be with me. Forever. You are to be mine. Get up. She held the bleeding corpse in her hooves. Its eyes were glazed over and unfocused, and a content smile was spread across its face. No, Rarity said.
This isn't right. You were supposed to love me. You were supposed to be perfect. We were supposed to be happy. Get up. Love me. Love me. Love me. Love me. By now, she was shaking the once again dead body. Rarity dropped the body, and it landed in the pool of blood with a loud splatter. As a mother mourned for her dead child, as a master wept at his ruined painting, as a child cried for his dead parent, and as a mare howled for her lost lover, Rarity sat in the pool of cold blood over her Prince Charming, tears streaming down her face, mixing with the crimson, mourning the loss of her prince, and again, and forever, her hopes. Prince Charming, Prince Charming, my perfect Prince Charming. From heart I had made you, and hopes created, to love like new, and with dreams elated. We were to be the happiest pair, but then you left me, alone to despair. Oh, why did you go? You were to be mine, but you tore out my heart, and left me behind. Okay, well that seems like a good enough spot to stop it. I have no ending comments. My throat is really dry and I just want to get a drink of water.